Mera Jensen didn't plan to text a billionaire. She just wanted her baby to stop crying. It was 12:47 a.m. The kind of silence that feels heavy. The lights in her apartment were off not for atmosphere, but because the electricity had been cut earlier that week. Her 1-year-old son, Noah, was crying from the bedroom. His bottle that night had been mostly water. Mera sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, staring at the empty can of formula on the counter. She hated this part, the asking, the swallowing of pride. Her hands trembled as she opened her phone and typed a message. "Ben, I'm sorry to ask again. I need $50 for formula. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back, please." She hit send without double-checking. 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. "I think you meant to send this to someone else." Mera's stomach dropped. "Wrong number." She quickly typed back, "I'm so sorry. Please ignore that." She locked her phone and pressed her forehead to her knees. Another failure. 3 blocks away, in a glass penthouse overlooking the city, Jackson Albbright stared at the message on his private phone. No one had that number, no press, no assistants, no business contacts, only family, and that list was short. He read the message again. "I need $50 for formula." It wasn't polished, it wasn't manipulative, it was desperate. Against his better judgment, he replied, "Is your baby going to be okay?" Mera blinked at the screen. "Who asks that? We'll manage." She wrote back, "Sorry again." "I can help," he replied, "no strings." She almost laughed. "I don't take money from strangers." "Smart," he wrote. "I'm Jackson. Now I'm not a stranger." She didn't respond. But 20 minutes later, with Noah crying again in her arms, she did something she never thought she would. She sent him her payment handle. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed. $50 received. Mera froze. She checked again. $5,000. "This is too much." She typed, "It's already yours." He replied, "Take care of Noah." Her heart stopped. She never told him her son's name. The next morning, 4 large boxes arrived at her apartment. Formula, diapers, baby clothes, organic food, toys. At the bottom of one box was a small note. "He deserves better than barely getting by. J." Mera did something she hadn't done in months. She cried, not because she was broke, not because she was exhausted, but because someone had seen her struggle and didn't look away. Curiosity got the better of her. She searched his name, Jackson Albbright, CEO of Helix Core Industries. Net worth $11.8 billion, media, shy, widowed, no children. Her hands shook. Why would a man like that help someone like her? She texted him, "Why are you doing this?" The reply came minutes later, "Because once, someone helped me when they didn't have to." There was something honest about it. Not dramatic, not flashy, just real. Then he asked a question that changed everything. "What did you do before Noah?" She hesitated. "Biochem research, diagnostics." There was a pause. "Come to Helix Core tomorrow, 11 a.m. Ask for Ava." "Why?" "Because I invest in people, not problems." The next day, Mera stood in the lobby of one of the most powerful tech companies in the country, holding her baby. She felt underdressed, underqualified, out of place, but the receptionist smiled. "You're expected." Expected. That word hit differently. She was led to a top-floor office, and inside was something she never imagined. A small nursery, a crib, soft rugs, toys, for Noah. Ava said gently, "Mr. Albbright thought you'd be more comfortable." Mera's throat tightened. Moments later, Jackson walked in. He looked exactly like the photos, tall, controlled, unreadable, but his eyes were tired. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You didn't have to do all this." "I know," he replied. I wanted to. He slid a folder across the table. 3-month contract, flexible hours, more pay than she'd ever made. I don't believe in charity, he said. I believe in capability. Why me? She asked. Because you asked for $50, not $5. Silence filled the room. Then she nodded. I'll take it. Within 2 weeks, Mera found something: irregular payments, small amounts, hidden under vendor names that didn't exist. Someone was siphoning money from the company, carefully, strategically. She brought it directly to Jackson. You suspected? She said, yes. You didn't trust anyone. Until now. The CFO, Vincent Harmon, had built a perfect system. Ghost approvals, shell companies, clean trails, but not clean enough. Together, they gathered evidence. When confronted, Vincent smirked. You think the board will believe her over me? Jackson didn't flinch. I don't need belief, he said calmly. I have proof. Within days, federal investigators were involved. The board suspended Vincent. Headlines exploded. $billion fraud exposed. Mera's name wasn't public, but inside the company, everyone knew. The single mom who texted the wrong number had uncovered corporate corruption. After it was over, Jackson found her in the nursery. Noah was asleep in her arms. You changed everything, he said quietly. You gave me a chance. She replied. No, he said, you took it. He offered her a permanent role, head of internal audit, direct access, full authority. She stared at him. That's a lot of trust. I don't give it easily. Neither did she. But she accepted. Months later, Mera stood in her new apartment, her own lease, her own furniture, no unpaid bills on the table, no watered-down bottles, no fear of the lights shutting off. Her phone buzzed, a message from Jackson. A screenshot, the very first text she had ever sent him. Ben, I need $50 for formula. Below it, his reply. I think you have the wrong number. He titled the file, The Accident That Wasn't. She smiled. You still think it wasn't an accident? She texted back. His reply came quickly. Some mistakes are just better directions. A minute later, her doorbell rang. She opened it. Jackson stood there, no suit, no boardroom presence, just him. You once asked for $50. He said softly. I'm asking for something bigger. She raised an eyebrow. What? A real future for all three of us. For a second, she saw flashes of the past. The dark kitchen, the empty formula can, the wrong number. And then she looked at Noah, who reached toward Jackson without hesitation. Sometimes life doesn't change because you planned it. Sometimes it changes because you were brave enough to press send. Mera stepped aside and opened the door wider. Come in, she said, and this time it wasn't a mistake. Jackson didn't step inside immediately. He looked at her like he was making sure this wasn't a fragile moment that might shatter if he moved too fast. You sure? He asked quietly. Mera nodded. I've been sure for a while. He stepped in. No grand music. No dramatic embrace. Just a quiet closing of the door behind him. Noah waddled forward on unsteady legs, arms stretched upward. Jackson bent down without hesitation and lifted him easily, like he'd done it 100 times before. Hey, partner, he murmured. Mera watched them carefully, not as a woman falling in love, but as a mother evaluating risk. Noah rested his head on Jackson's shoulder comfortably. That was the first answer she needed. They sat on the couch, closer than usual. For a while, they didn't talk about us. They talked about work, the board restructuring, the new compliance framework, the federal investigation timeline, safe topics, predictable. Finally, Jackson leaned back slightly. I meant what I said. He added, I'm not offering you security. You've built that yourself. I'm offering partnership. She studied him. Those are two very different things, I know, and if this doesn't work, then we handle it like adults, no power imbalance, no retaliation, no messy corporate drama. She almost smiled. You've thought about this, every day, silence again, but this silence felt different, not heavy, not uncertain, just honest. Over the next few weeks, nothing exploded, no scandal, no backlash, no secret board interference. Vincent's charges moved forward, quietly, firmly. Helix Core stabilized, and Mera built her department from the ground up. She hired carefully, not based on prestige, not based on referrals, but on instinct, on work ethic, on integrity. Jackson never interfered, not once, that mattered. Their relationship didn't start with fireworks. It started with consistency, morning coffee left on her desk, late, night strategy talks that turned into shared laughter. No, as tiny shoes appearing in Jackson's office because he'd carried him in during a call. One evening, Mera stayed late reviewing quarterly reports. Jackson appeared in her doorway again. You know it's 9 p.m., right? I know. You know you're allowed to leave. I also know fraud doesn't clock out. He walked inside, placed 2 takeout containers on her desk. I brought dinner. She raised an eyebrow, trying to distract the head of audit, trying to make sure she doesn't burn out. They ate quietly. Halfway through, she asked something she hadn't dared to before. Why didn't you remarry? He didn't look offended. He didn't look defensive. He just looked thoughtful. Because after my wife passed, I stopped building anything that felt permanent. She softened slightly. And now, he looked at her directly, now I'm building again. One Saturday afternoon, they weren't in the office. No suits, no boardrooms, just a small park across the city. Noah was attempting to conquer the slide like it was a mountain. Jackson stood nearby, hands in his pockets, watching carefully but letting him try. Mera sat on the bench, observing both of them. You're good with him, she said. I'm learning. No, she corrected gently, you're choosing to be good. That hit deeper. He sat beside her. You still waiting for this to fall apart? He asked. Sometimes. Me too. They shared a quiet laugh. It wasn't fear. It was realism. They had both lost too much to pretend life was predictable. The real test came unexpectedly. A media outlet connected the dots. An anonymous article surfaced. CEO relationship with whistleblower raises ethical questions. The board requested a formal review. Not aggressive, but cautious. Mera read the email twice, then walked into Jackson's office. You knew this would happen. Yes. You worried. No. Why? Because we didn't start this as a scandal. He stood. If stepping back protects you, I will. She narrowed her eyes. You think I need protecting. I think I'd give up anything before I let you take damage meant for me. She stepped closer. We handle it transparently. And if they force distance, then we respect it temporarily. That word lingered. Temporarily, neither of them liked it. The board investigation lasted 3 weeks. Full compliance review. Communication logs. Timeline audits. What they found instead was clean. Their relationship had begun after her employment was formalized. No preferential compensation. No policy violations. Just 2 adults who happened to meet under unusual circumstances. The board closed the review unanimously. Privately, one senior member told Jackson, "You got lucky." Jackson had replied calmly, "No, I got honest." That night, he showed up at her apartment again. No announcement, no dramatic speech, just a quiet knock. When she opened the door, he looked lighter. "It's done," he said. She exhaled slowly. "Good." He stepped closer. "This doesn't scare you." She thought about it. The headlines, the whispers, the risk. Then she shook her head. "No. Why not? Because I've already survived worse than public opinion. That answer stayed with him. Months passed. Noah started daycare part-time. Helix Core launched a new medical AI division. Mera's compliance system became a case study in corporate ethics. And for the first time in years, Jackson took a full week off. Not for a conference. Not for damage control. For vacation. They didn't go somewhere flashy. No paparazzi islands. Just a quiet coastal town. One evening, standing near the shoreline while Noah chased waves badly and fearlessly, Jackson turned serious. "You remember that first night?" he asked. "How could I forget? You said you don't take money from strangers." She smiled. "I still don't." He reached into his pocket. Not a ring box, not yet. Just something folded. He handed it to her. It was printed. That first text message again. Below it, he'd written something new. "Best investment I ever made." Her throat tightened. "You didn't invest in me." "Yes, I did." "No," she said softly. "You believed in me." There was a difference. He looked at Noah, then back at her. "I don't want to just build companies anymore." "What do you want to build?" He didn't hesitate this time. "A family." The ocean moved behind them, steady, endless. She didn't answer immediately, because this wasn't about romance. This was about permanence, about risk, about trust. Finally, she stepped closer. "You already are." He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. No fireworks, no applause, just 3 silhouettes against the sunset. Sometimes life changes because of ambition. Sometimes because of tragedy. And sometimes because a tired mother typed the wrong number at midnight. And a man who had everything chose to answer. 3 months after the board cleared everything, the call came at 2:13 a.m. Mera woke up instantly, not because of the ringtone. Because mothers develop a sixth sense for danger. She reached for her phone. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. Hello. Silence, then breathing, slow, controlled. "You should have stayed poor." The line went dead. Mera sat upright, cold, not scared, cold. Beside her, Noah stirred but didn't wake. "Jackson." She called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. What happened? She didn't ask how he knew something was wrong. She just told him. There was a pause, not confusion, recognition. "He's out on bail." Jackson said quietly. Her stomach dropped. "Vincent." "Yes." "How?" "Technicality in evidence chain. His lawyers are aggressive." Mera swung her legs off the bed. "So this isn't random." "No." The next morning, security was doubled at Helix Core. Jackson insisted on protection for her apartment too. She refused. "I won't live like I'm hiding." "You're not hiding," he said calmly. "You're being smart." She hated that he was right. 2 days later, the second message came. Not a call this time, an email from a masked address. Subject line, "Check the accounts." Attached was a single PDF. Helix Core internal ledger, recent transfers, large ones, 7 figures. Authorized by Mera Jensen. Her blood ran cold. "That's not possible." She whispered. She hadn't approved any high-level transactions in weeks. She ran to her laptop, logged into the system. There it was. Her credentials, her digital signature. 2 emergency transfers routed to an offshore holding account. Timestamp 3:07 a.m. The same night as the phone call. She hadn't even been awake. Her chest tightened. This wasn't harassment. This was framing. Within an hour, Jackson was in her apartment. No suit, no driver, just him. She showed him the screen. He didn't react emotionally. He reacted strategically. "Don't touch anything," he said. "You think I did this." She snapped. His eyes softened immediately. "No, I think someone wants it to look like you did." "Vincent, most likely." She felt anger rising. Hot, sharp, he couldn't beat you, so now he's coming for me. Jackson's jaw tightened. He's coming for both of us. By noon, the board had been notified. By evening, a formal inquiry was opened. This time, her name was public. Internal Audit Director under investigation. The headlines came fast. Whistleblower turned fraudster. Romantic conflict of interest. She read them all. Not because she wanted to, because she refused to be blindsided. Jackson stood firm publicly. Full transparency. He told the press. No exceptions. Even if it meant risking her position, she respected him more for that. That night, they sat in silence. Noah asleep in the next room. If they suspend me, she said quietly, don't fight it. I will. Don't. He looked at her sharply. This isn't about ego. It's about credibility, she replied. If you protect me blindly, it confirms their narrative. He hated that she was right. Again, Keller flew in the next morning. No video calls, in person. She reviewed the logs, every timestamp, every keystroke pattern, every device ID. After 6 hours, she leaned back. It's sophisticated, Keller said. Can you prove it wasn't her? Jackson asked. Keller's eyes narrowed. I can prove something better. She rotated the laptop toward them. Look at the signature behavior. Mera leaned closer. When you log in, Keller continued, you always access 3 dashboards first. Compliance overview, vendor map, risk alerts. She paused. These transfers, the account accessed only the Treasury module. Mera frowned. I never start there. Exactly, Keller said. And look at the typing cadence. Jackson blinked. Typing cadence. Everyone has rhythm. Micro pauses between characters. It's like a fingerprint. She zoomed in on the log pattern. This signature, it's artificially smooth. No human inconsistency. Mera's eyes widened. It's automated. Keller nodded. Script injection. Someone cloned her credentials and executed a timed transaction. Jackson exhaled slowly. So he didn't just want revenge. No, Keller said. He wants to destroy her credibility permanently. But Vincent made one mistake. He got greedy. Instead of 2 transfers, there were 3. The third was smaller, almost invisible, and it rerouted through the same Delaware shell company he'd used before. Trinox. He couldn't resist. He used his old pipeline. Keller smiled slightly. That's our crack. They moved fast. Federal investigators were alerted quietly. Digital forensic warrants were executed within 48 hours. Vincent didn't expect it. He thought he had shifted attention fully onto Mera. Instead, they traced the automation server, registered under a private consulting firm, owned by someone very familiar. Vincent Harmon. The arrest happened at 6:32 a.m. This time, no bail, no technicality, wire fraud, corporate sabotage, retaliation against a federal witness. The charges stacked high. When the news broke, the narrative flipped overnight. Executive attempts to frame audit director. Failed revenge plot exposed. Mera watched the coverage in disbelief. Jackson stood behind her, hands resting lightly on her shoulders. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded slowly. I'm not scared anymore. You should be a little, he said gently. It means you understand the stakes. She turned toward him. I survived being broke. I survived being ignored. I survived being framed. A small smile formed. I'm not easy to erase. He looked at her like he knew that from the beginning. A week later, the board held an emergency meeting. Public apology issued. Full reinstatement. Expanded authority. One board member even stood and said, We underestimated you. Mera's response was calm. I'm not here to be underestimated or overestimated. I'm here to make sure this never happens again. No applause, just respect. That night, She stood in the kitchen again, but this time the lights were on. The fridge was full. Noah was laughing in the living room while Jackson helped him stack blocks. She looked around quietly. The same city, a completely different life. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her chest tightened for half a second. She answered. Silence. Then a robotic voice. This number is no longer in service. The line disconnected. She stared at the phone. Jackson walked over. What is it? She shook her head slowly. Nothing. But deep down she understood something. Vincent was gone. But power always leaves shadows. And sometimes the next threat doesn't come from enemies. It comes from success. She looked at Jackson. You ever feel like this isn't the last test? He smiled faintly. With us? She nodded. He stepped closer. Good, good. If life stops testing us, it means we stopped growing. For the first time she didn't fear what was next. Because this time she wasn't alone.